have a very special guest today. We're sitting down with Fitz Jackson, Member of Parliament for St. Catherine. So, thanks for making it, sir. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure, and thanks for inviting me to share with you.
You're welcome, sir. Because you might not know, but our program is about inspiring youth and getting knowledge in terms of politics, all kind of things with culture. But we're still doing the political part as well. A lot of our young people have different misconceptions about politics. So we're just trying to clear the air.
Right. So, we're here and we want you to shed some light on some pressing issues that have been in the media lately, and also to just give us a wider vision of what the People's National Party has planned for the citizens of Jamaica. So to start off, we just want to know a little bit more about you and your journey coming up. What was your journey like as a representative for St. Catherine Southern, and what drives your commitment to Portmore?
Well, to begin with, I started out being a youth like you are too. I just consider myself a bigger youth. Well,
Definitely.
and I made that point really to say that, it's a journey, and we pass through different phases. And our experiences at the early phases, to a great extent, to shape, who we become, what we become in greater life. I'm a country boy, born and raised in Loydersville, which is in northwest St. Catherine. I was pretty fortunate to have had a very good growing up experience. Left relatively early from there into Kingston Harbourview, where I attended Harbourview College, from which where I took common entrance and went to Kingston Technical High School. I think Kingston Technical High School was really my most formative years as a citizen. In my own grown-up experience in Loydersville, I grew up in a family that was very involved in community activity. My father was a parish councillor at one stage, and the politics took place around the house.
So you've been in politics from birth, basically.
Well, not all of my siblings. In fact, I'm the only one that has been involved to this extent, but all have been involved in terms of being participated and engaged around public issues. I mean, because we see our parents involved at the community level and beyond.
Okay.
At high school, of course, Kingston Technical High School, you see on my face lit up when I mentioned Kingston Technical High School because it's dear to me. As I said, I think my most formative period was then. So I went through being involved from first to final year, involved in class leadership and activities. Ended up in the final year becoming head boy and student council president. And I say that to underscore the involvement. And I think we did some very, very novel things at Kingston Tech at the time. Since the first that the student body reported teachers to the principal for underperforming, underperformance and their part.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yes, we did it because we took the whole experience of learning. One batch that I was in the building side, and we have some common papers in GC that we see others seem to be ahead of us. Being taught by another teacher was unacceptable. And we're doing the course to pass the exams and to do well. So we want to be properly prepared, and the teachers are responsible for all preparation. So, we acted that way. Beyond that, in my college, university days, I have been very active throughout all my years. After high school, I went in the USA where I did my online tertiary studies, so the associate degree, bachelor's, and master's program all abroad. So I was involved in the school environment there. Upon returning home, it basically continued. I was involved in my citizen association, served as president, and from there, I was involved in the party politics too, because there's different aspect to it. While involved with the community organization and community leadership, community activities, there's a bigger picture of country This is where the political party comes in.
Mhm.
Citizens Association don't extend itself to the national issues. That's where political parties come in. So yes, I was engaged within the PNP from then, which was about 1988, 1989.
Okay.
I started being directly involved in the party organization and involved and in 1994 when the sitting member of parliament who swore resigned and retired and sought another resignation at the time. I had no desire, intention to serve in elected office. And that is surprising to many people. I've been given the opportunity and offer to serve in a councillor seat in Luana's where I was born and grown. I had strong family background and know everybody there. I didn't want to take it out because my own arrangement with work and I would come back never lend itself to it.
Mm.
And there too in Portmore, I never sought to get any office as councillor or that became available while I was there. Because really I see myself more as a team player than as a leader. So I like to work with a team towards a common purpose and common goals. But when the sitting MP retired at the time, my colleagues within the party in the constituency insisted that I move forward to be the successor. So that's where it started as a matter of genesis
Okay.
in elected office.
So the main topic today we're asking about Portmore declaring the 15th parish of Jamaica and why the PNP stands on Portmore not being a parish yet.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question so I can clarify. To speak to Portmore becoming a parish or not is to properly understand where we are and where we're coming from, what brought us here, what we sought to achieve where we are now.
Okay.
From in the early 90s, virtually all the community groups, citizen associations in Portmore began to lobby to have their own local government authority. Why? Because they believed that they were inadequately or ineffectively served by the St. Catherine Parish Council at the time. It's during the early part of my tenure. And I empathize with that contention because I too, as a member of parliament back then, had the same difficulty with the St. Catherine Parish Council because most of the issues that affected my constituency of South St. Catherine at the time are predominantly of a local government nature and not central government. And I was in a position I couldn't do anything. So I even lobbied the St. Catherine Parish Council to attend to many issues in my constituency. But that extended beyond my constituency to the rest of Portmore. So what they wanted is a local government authority to attend to the local government issues. What you call it is neither here nor there. But they want a government authority to attend to those issues. You might know that Kingston and St. Andrew is two parishes. But there's one local government authority.
That's the thing.
Why? Because the people within the corporate area saw that it was more efficient and effective to deal with the local government issues in both parishes. I don't hear anybody quarreling, so they must split up and each parish have their own local government authority. Because it works. It works. But what we had in St. Catherine with Spanish Town and the local of Portmore was not working. And the people of Portmore, the community leaders, in their own genius, said, look, let us create a separate local government authority for Portmore to deal with those local government.
That's how we got the Portmore Municipality.
And I made this point repeatedly. The PNP did not create the Portmore Municipality. All the PNP did was facilitating the creation of the Portmore Municipality that the people of Portmore lobbied and fought for. They fought not only to have it, but they wanted it to be very different from the existing ones.
Okay.
And how is the Portmore Municipality different? One, They said then, and they have not voiced a desire for it to be otherwise. Their municipalities' mayor must not be elected by the majority of the political party candidates or councillors. They want the mayor of their municipality to be directly accountable to them, hence the direct elected mayor.
Yeah,
Which is the only one in Jamaica.
because when it was local government election, I did see that when I decided to make a vote, because I wanted to try the electoral process for myself.
Yes. So you voted at the local government level, you voted for two candidates, one for the mayor and one for your councillor. Nowhere else in Jamaica. Because they said, we don't want a mayor who is accountable only to those who elect him, which is the majority of councillors in the council. They want the mayor to feel and be held directly accountable to them. That's one. Two, that is very distinct from the other municipalities, local government authorities in Jamaica. In statute, in law, there is a Portmore Citizens Advisory Council. Because remember, the municipality was created by the Citizens Associations, led through the Portmore Joint Citizens Association, which is an umbrella group of all the citizens associations in Portmore. They who lobbied for the municipality and would have it be created, they never want to get left out because they were not active political people. They were community people. So in the new municipality to be created, they still want a voice. And that voice would have been through the Portmore Citizens Advisory Council.
Okay.
Unique to Jamaica. You might have citizens group participating in the municipalities only by courtesy
Okay.
of that local government authority. In the Portmore situation, it exists in law.
Oh.
Now, how well it functions is another matter. But you have it. It is the responsibility to make it work and work effectively. Currently speaking, it does need some work. But you have that provision in law that the citizens can go at the municipal office, municipal council meetings, and sit in that meeting. The mayor can't deny a citizen's representative from that council to sit there. You can't vote because you were not elected by the electorate. But it allows for transparency. That they know what the discussions are. They know what the decisions are. Not second hand, but sitting right there at the table, having a seat created by them. And thirdly, one of the distinguishing features in the Portmore municipality that don't exist in no parish in Jamaica. When the municipality was created, the boundaries for it was deemed to be interim because it's already bordered to the south, to the east, which is coming back to the corporate area. The south is the sea. And north, we have accepted that between the bypass, Spanish Town bypass and the Red Cobre, which form the boundary with Kingston and St. Andrew, would help to form the northern boundary. So the only way Portmore could expand is going west. And there was a need to establish or to provide for more land space for more development, industry, this, whatever municipality wants to have done it as some land room rather than locked into a tight boundary when there was a lot of open land, mainly in the Bernard Lodge lands. In law, those people, those leaders of Portmore, not political leaders, no, not NE people, ordinary citizens through their citizen association, required and have it provided for that when the boundaries are changed or considered to be changed at any time thereafter, the politicians can't do it by themselves.
Okay.
Let me underscore that point because there's much debate now about boundaries and political boundaries. The people in Portmore sought to have a voice in the decision on the boundary.
Okay.
In law. No, you can't find a greater example of deep democracy in Jamaica than that.
Okay.
Where the non-political persons are not the beginning and the end of everything. So the people through their own organization.
Okay, we have a brief question. About we saw during the legal, right? Where the PNP got a injunction to pause Portmore from being named 15 parish after it's already been passed in the Senate. Can you tell us some more about that? Why was the reason for the injunction, like the suit in court?
Okay, with the 15 parish concept, there are different aspects to it. The PNP have contended that it is a breach of democracy when the government uses its parliamentary majority to uproot a structure and a system that was led by the people and reflect what they aspired for. Nobody came to and say that in Portmore that we want a parish instead of a municipality. That's in the head of the GLP. The GLP is not Portmore. The PNP is not Portmore. Portmore is the people of Portmore.
We have a very insightful conversation going on here, but before we go further, we want to introduce our legal mind here, Tony Carson, to weigh in on the conversation with MP Fitz Jackson. So, just continuing our conversation, we want to find out some more. You have accused the JLP of gerrymandering through the parish designation. Can you explain what evidence there is to support this claim?
Indeed, there are a couple of evidences that are very clear. But if you don't believe me, you can believe Mr. Warmington. He said it publicly that the boundaries for the Portmore municipality that was in place now, they want that change and not to the one that was proposed by the ECJ back in 2011 when the additional constituency was created in Portmore. They want a boundary that is favorable to them, the JLP. And he said it openly. Now that they are going to get the boundaries that they want with the creation of the parish, no way will the PNP able to win the East Central St. Catherine seat. And no way that the PNP will be able to control the Port St. Catherine Municipal Authority anymore, because the parish will cut away those councillors from participating in the St. Catherine Parish Council. So they, the JLP, will have a clear majority all the time. And they will secure a garrison for themselves in East Central St. Catherine. I don't use the word garrison, but he said we'll never able to win it. That's it. He said it. But to reinforce that, the very boundaries that he pointed to back then in November 2023 are the exact boundary description in the bill that they're tabled for the parish of Portmore. So there is the evidence. It is in the law that they're promulgated. And gerrymandering, as you know, is the manipulation of political boundaries for the advantage of the incumbent against others. So it's a classical case of gerrymandering, both by what is manifested in the law and what Mr. Warmington's public utterances have been.
Okay. Tony,
Yes.
do you have any pressing questions as it relates particularly to the legal side of things?
Okay, so based on just that gerrymandering point, and obviously, as you said, gerrymandering is manipulating political boundaries to your benefit. However, as probably a lot of youths would have the same issue. In order for any bill to be passed in Parliament, it has to go to both the upper and lower house, right? And then, of course, the upper and lower house. So how is it that that bill, with all its follies, was able to be passed in general to the point that it had to go to the courts to be disputed? So that's just my question.
Very simple. The gerrymanderers, which is the JLP government, care nothing about the law.
Right.
Because we all know since 1979, over 46 years ago, when what used to happen is that the incumbent government ran the elections, both in terms of the administration and in terms of what the boundaries were to be. And we all witnessed the consequence of that. Over almost 1,000 persons were murdered. because of the political violence that ensued, because one side feels that they are being unfairly treated. Political boundaries usually set by the government. To the wisdom of the PNP and the JLP back then, Mr. Sarah, leading the JLP, and Mr. Man, leading the PNP, said, no, this can't go on forever. We have to move it out of any incumbent government. That is what gave birth to the Electoral Advisory Commission at the time.
Right.
Now, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, where neither political party form the government will by themselves able to administer the elections and include setting political boundaries. And since 1980, 45 years ago, to our credit, no election result has ever been questioned by the losing party. In 2007, I think there was one seat that divided the both parties with it.
Yes, that is
One seat. But yet the losing party, in that case, the PNP, acknowledged the result because it was done by an independent body.
right.
Would we want to undermine that progress?
But
Certainly not.
certainly not. But we've seen in recent cases a lot of litigation currently going on with government bodies and the executive, as you would call it, and a lot of these quote unquote independent bodies have been also coming under fire for not only their rulings, but I would say interference, I guess, by members of the executive. So, how is it that as youth we should trust these quote unquote independent bodies?
No, well, the independent bodies have never been brought into question. They have
Okay.
been accused by the government.
Okay,
Just for the record.
okay,
They have sought to slaughter the Integrity Commission.
right.
Right? They have slaughtered the office of the political ombudsman. And they have sought to, but never succeed, the ECJ. In recent times, I heard the pronouncements of Minister Trump about being surprised of the ECJ don't have a mechanism to deal with political complaints now that they have subsumed the office of the political ombudsman in the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, which shows or confirms how reckless this government is. Why do I say that? The normal course of promulgating legislation in our country is that you know what you want to prevail after the legislation is brought into action.
Right.
So the mechanisms are prepared before. The sensitization is done. In this case, you have an existing body, which is the ECJ, that you could sensitize them of the new role before it becomes law, so that you have a smooth transition. 1 year plus after the last election, and since that law was brought into being, we don't have a mechanism in the ECJ to deal with political complaints.
So you're saying it's retroactive then in
It's
nature?
not even retroactive, it's non-existent.
Oh.
Non-existent as we speak. It is for that reason the leader of the opposition made the appeal to the opposition that in the absence of any mechanism in the ECJ to deal with complaints, let us have an agreement between both parties for the establishment of either a single person or a group of persons who will adjudicate
Right.
on any complaints in not the same way that the political ombudsman will have done it. And then you're bound to accept the result of that adjudication so that you can have a smooth, handling of complaints, which you will have in a competitive situation. Even in the athletics, you have complaints being made by different teams and so on.
Understood.
But it is of note that the government, in almost every case that they have gone to the court, they have lost. And it speaks to the legal immorality of the government.
Well, I understand where you're coming from because as law students, we in administrative law we had to look at the current recent case that where the Prime Minister requested leave in order to get judicial review for the issue that's going on with the Integrity Commission that he's currently in. And I found it so interesting how many lawyers were on his basically counsel, right? And how many mistakes, I don't know because it's fresh to me as a law student, how many mistakes were made in that they were requesting mandamuses and certiorars from the through judicial review, and you can't necessarily tell the persons who are doing judicial review to say, hey, tell the integrity commission to do that, because they simply cannot. And I also found it very interesting that is the fact that they were requesting leave, and how it was portrayed in the media like it was some extreme thing when all you were requesting was leave. So I not to have like no political biases here, guys, no political biases here. But I just found it so interesting from a legal standpoint, like what was going through your minds, and then it was the same thing recently with the Portmore issue, because in the PMP requesting that injunction, you would have of course, the learned judge in his dissenting judgment would have made mention that this needed 2 years to to come into fruition for Portmore to become a parish. So I just found it, I was like, did you guys not consider these things or thought about these things? Or is it just a ploy? Like that's just me sitting and thinking
That's the
about.
question you're asking to the Jamaican government.
Yes,
At
in
present.
general, at the present,
Okay.
as not even just for me alone, from a budding legal perspective, but just in general for us nationals, are we, if it is that you guys are not considering or running a folly, I would say, for lack of better words, of the legal system, what it is that, how are we supposed to, I guess, have some abidancy then, that is the word, in terms of the law? Because if it is that you guys aren't, for lack of better words again, sorry, following the current procedure, and I'm assuming, hoping that you guys do, why is it that I would say all of these court cases not in your favor are happening?
There's a simple explanation.
Mm-hmm.
This government has clearly demonstrated very strong autocratic disposition.
Is that so?
Autocratic leaders, autocratic government is not comfortable with the laws
Oh.
because they are the law.
Mm.
So, MP Fitz Jackson, the people want to know, what can we expect from the PNP administration if re-elected in the upcoming general elections this year? And more specifically, what can we expect in terms of the fight against crime and corruption?
I just meant what they said. If we get elected, when we get elected.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the people have basically said it clear that they want a change in government. Not just for a change, but to end much of what they are experiencing. And what are some of those things that they want to come to an end and need some new path and new direction on? And what the PNP will offer, first of all, we'll have a government of integrity.
Mm.
Okay.
If a government is lacking in integrity to the extent that this one is, you will lack the moral authority to attempt to mobilize the country around whatever initiative that you want to pursue for our development. Government can't achieve things by themselves. It's the people and the country together. What government does is provide leadership, provide direction, and you must have some confidence in the people who lead you. Mark Golding is unquestionably someone of integrity, with a proven track record of integrity, not by mere utterance, but by his life journey. We have identified some critical areas in the country that need to go in a different direction. Education, for one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have been able to facilitate greater access to education from early childhood to tertiary. But there are many challenges along the way. One, quality of education. The quality measured by the output. How many students are completing the various tiers, the primary, secondary, and the tertiary at minimum satisfactory levels,
Mm-hmm.
way below what we needed to do.
A lot of tertiary student, uh, we're seeing that tertiary fees are increasing a lot, and a lot of persons aren't able to continue with school, have to choose between school and their family or work. So, what would the PMP administration do to alleviate these problems, especially as UE, where we're seeing that students have a funding deficit?
Well, a couple of things.
Mm.
The student loan is the main platform and vehicle for government support to students.
Mm.
And we have made it clear, even when you are able to complete your studies,
Mhm.
you are unable to service the loans that you have. What is the PNP's response? We're going to cap the repayment amount relative to your earning when you leave school.
Right.
So you create some breathing space for the person to start their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're going to expand the student loan program to make it more accessible. Granted, it is to help those from the bottom up, those that have the greatest challenge to be able to afford it. So the Student Loan Bureau will be revisited with a view and an objective to deal with the demand of students who are struggling. There are students, we know, students share with me too personally. There are students that are on student loan who are not to be a student loan
That's
because their family and so forth can afford to support them.
I mean, afford is kind of relative if you look in the grand scheme of things, because we might say a person earn on paper, but you don't know the things that they have to spend on. Because
So the ability to will take into consideration
okay,
your income,
okay,
a lack of income, and the extent of it, and your level of support would be proportional to your ability. As you rightfully said, ability is relative.
yes.
Everybody has
Especially if you look at the inflation that's going on so much.
Indeed, what cushion do you have to insulate against those changes? To go back to the question about what the PNP seeks to do, which is better for Jamaica, we have to grow the economy. After all the cry is over, government has to create an environment where people are earning more and more people are earning.
Okay, with that now, if you look at it, Jamaica, two biggest economic growth are things that we normally grow in this economy is really three. Tourism number one, remittance is number two, and BPO sector is the highest employer. So that is government, sorry, my mistake, government. But privately, we're seeing that the rise of the BPO sector as the greatest employer.
Well, in the BPO sector, and portion credit, but the changes that we had initiated in information technology is what have given rise to the growth in the BPO sector. What has not happened, is not for the low income part of it, but in the high tech areas, where you have the creative side of technology coming to play. Those are areas that we're going to go back to energize and expansion in. Of course, with AI and all of that, many of the prospects in the existing BPO sector is really on a trend. So we have to look at how we can expand that and the scope of activities there. Nothing remain static, but we must be responsive. How we're going to seek to make a difference? We can't talk about growing the economy if a major element of economic growth is energy, is at the cost level that it is. Where you have electricity hovering around 40 plus US cents per kilowatt hours, that's not a competitive environment for businesses.
If you look at the fact check, though, Jamaica have a higher electricity cost more than even Germany. That more like it's in the top 5% in the world.
Indeed. But what has happened over the last 9 years in terms of increasing the production of energy in a cheaper way? We had set some goal of going to, I think, 30%, 50% of renewable energy by 2030. We're far away from that. What we have set out, the PNP, is a program of expansion of renewable energy. in a more cost-effective way so that we can
So this is
facilitate.
my last question before my other host finish up.
Sure.
As a young professional or a young person that's going into professional working world, the biggest concern is housing market. Because look at this, I see the government saying that 38 million for these houses in Portmore, but when I calculate it, that's 100,000 a month for mortgage. How much young persons can
More than
actually, and more than that? But how many young persons can actually afford a house in Jamaica? Okay.
So the response is to steer our investors more in low, not low income, more cost, low cost. We have some challenge with the cost of the units in the market now. We have examples of what we have done. If you want to talk about track record, look at Pines Karachi, look at Long Mountain, look at Oakland, and we can go all over the country. Those housing developments were targeting young professional persons who coming out of university, just starting the business and so forth, and need straight middle class housing facilities. That is in the market that we're going to return to. We have had tremendous success here. We're going to renew our force. In respect to housing, too, it's not only the provision of the lower or more affordable housing, but also how to assist young persons in accessing
That's the
financing.
thing, because when I see developers or even the government saying that middle earners are that, but middle earners, they're saying, how can a middle earner earn 38? Not say 38, but can
In order to finance a 38 million.
million house. Because if you look at it, even if you convert to US, that's roughly 250,000, even more than that. But even that's dearer than the most normal house in America.
Well, it's obvious that there's a disconnect between the pronouncements of government and what the reality is in the market. We have to make reality. What we offer or propose to offer match with the reality of people's earning. And that will be indeed focus of ours as we have done before. But to touch on the whole question of affordability,
Do you have any comment on the Ruthven Towers in particular?
it's a disaster from the beginning. And they were warned. But we have a government that is well pig-headed, right? Don't listen. You know, in order to mobilize a country towards development, first you must have a disposition to listen. Listen. Not just hear, listen. Now I grew up in the country, them said, pick sense out of nonsense. Everybody has something to contribute. Listen and distill what you have heard so we can get the best of it. What I can say and will say on behalf of People's National Party, we have a tradition of that. We will remain loyal to that tradition of engaging the people at various levels, at the community levels, in the parliament. For example, when we have joint select committees and critical issues of national importance, young persons like yourself, we want to get together, distill amongst yourselves your critical ideas and thoughts, bring them to the fore. You will have a government that will be in partnership with you rather than a government that seeks to exercise power over you. Because we recognize and accept that our success as a government will only be possible when you all are part of it. And what we do in terms of policy and program, that there is some sense of ownership. Because let's face it, government can't be policing everything. You want to have as much voluntary compliance, voluntary cooperation by the people, and that will not happen if the people don't feel a part of it. It's not a theoretical notion. All across the world, once the people are part of it, success is almost guaranteed.
All right, so thank you very much for that. Gems everywhere. So I think this is the final question. Mr. Fitz, so you made mention of Vision 2030 and that, the People's National Party is one of progress, correct? Is one of progress. So granted, currently we have an injunction for Portmore, but if it is that in the future, the possibility that Portmore does become a parish, and Jamaica by and large, what is the vision that the People's National Party would say have for the people of Jamaica in addition to the people of Portmore? Not saying that they're different.
Well, in respect to the Portmore issue, I made the point earlier before you came that in the main, Jamaica becoming having 15 parish, not to be the call of just the people of Portmore.
Right.
Because they're changing the configuration of the entire country. And so the country must be engaged.
Referendum.
But most importantly, no one has been able to posit what makes for a parish. If you look at the very legislation that the government used to bring about the parish, it's an 1867 act that was used to divide up the parish among owners in different areas. You know, the naming after their wives or their daughters, Catherine, Mary, and the rest of it. It was never about people. So the first thing we ought to do as a country, and this is what the PNP government will do, is to engage the country to determine and to establish what are the criteria for a parish. So that you know if an area gets to a certain stage, you might want to get to another stage to be changed. So at the point, why is Manhattan still a part of New York with the great wealth and all of that? Because those things are not necessarily determined economics. It's just a great issue. What we need to do, to answer the question more directly, in respect to the parish, we will have that discussion with Jamaica. Not just Portmore or St. Catherine, about the 15 parishes. Out of that engagement, then we'll see what it was.
Okay. On a more broader scale then, Mr. Fitz, we looked at Portmore and how we would seek to, you said, you may mention a word of reform, I guess, and meeting the people of Jamaica. So how would that impact Jamaica then in terms of constitutional reform? I think we're having big conversations about that right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as Jamaica knows, we started the constitutional reform program from in the 90s. That is what gave birth to the last amendment to the Constitution.
2011?
2011. During the time of the GLP government, where they adopted the Charter of Rights that was developed under the PNP
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3 of the, that's the last major work in terms of constitutional reform. And many have contended that there are other things that we need to look at.
Yes.
Foremost amongst them is the termination of the monarchy as the head of state. What niggling issue in respect of that is what the replacement would be.
Would look like
Should it be an executive president or a ceremonial president? And there are still no definitive voice around that. More for a ceremonial in the interim as a transition. And then the question arises how that transitional ceremonial president is selected. The PNP's position is, if we are going to leave the monarchy, which we want to do, we must do it more completely. Currently, the monarch is the head of ceremonial, head of government. But also, another arm of government is also in the UK, which is the Privy Council.
Right.
And what the PNP is saying, let us make the shift completely.
Okay, understood.
Move from the monarch in respect to the head of state and also the head of the judiciary. Because if you should go by what the JLP is proposing now, you're still under final control because the final ruling of the court comes from the Privy Council, which is the King's Council.
It is.
The King's Court, sorry. The Privy Council is the King's Court. So it's a farce to say you're leaving the monarch when you're staying with the court.
Makes sense.
And our position is crystal clear. We're not going to do it in a piecemeal way. We're not going to go on a path that appears to be leaving the monarch, but that the final control through the court remains with the monarch.
Thank you again for passing through. Today was definitely a good interview, gauging perspective of what the opposition plans for Jamaica and also Portmore, engaging discussions. Hope to see you again one day.
No, tell me when you want that.
Definitely.
Right. I see her becoming probably Chief Justice one day.
Well,
If she goes on the bedside, be a major advocate.
let's put it into the future. Let's do that.